Okay, it is a new year, and this is going to begin a new series, although I've been talking about the subject for years. Okay, I'm going to be tapping into the energies of this new solar cycle and discussing the paranormal because we're approaching a new eclipse in April. I think that we're already seeing mass sacrifice, really, with what's happening in Gaza and the normalization of people calling for genocide. I saw this coming, okay? So this started with the eclipse in October 2023, and there's a history of kings, of astrologers, looking at these eclipses and seeing them as omens. In the modern day and age, there's a way in which we're influenced to look down upon the perspectives of our elders and ancestors, with regards to their perspectives on health, natural medicine, the stars, but in fact, there's a great deal of wisdom there. I think that we're affected in a number of ways by the sun, the moon, the eclipses, both lunar and solar. I believe that we are affected by the comets. There's a comet that was flying by when the George Floyd protests were going off the hook. And that brought out a lot of anger and aggression. And I think ultimately it's a lot of demonic activity. People are being harmed, even if it's supposedly for a just cause. So there's a lot of people on the extreme end of things, both the left and the right, that I would say are possessed. And looking at the violent attacks on Muslims happening now in India, I would say that there is massive possession there. There's also, the dark side of racism, which is getting worse, in which Indians are seen as more valuable than other ethnic groups. And then, of course, there's the racism around the world outside the United States, which is raging. So this issue of racism and me discussing its demonic roots / archonic / jinn, I use these words from these different spiritual traditions interchangeably. A lot of white Americans today are sensitive about the discussion of racism. I'm repeatedly saying that I'm discussing an epidemic of it that is global, including and especially in nations like India. Not to demonize Indian men or Indian women, or to say that they are less than valuable because they have corruption in their government, because they have radicalization. To say that they have programming too that we can see in real time outside the borders of our country and look at the things happening there and the stories of the mass rapes of some of the women. And then also the atrocities happening in China. Even if we're not there and we can't stop it, we need to be learning about what is taking place with humanity. What is taking place with humanity? Now that we're 3 minutes into this. I've been talking about it for over 10 years. And in so many ways I've paid the price. Let this be an introduction. The earth is being occupied by a spirit of evil. For years I've called this the archonic interference. This archonic interference in human affairs, I've talked for years, has been infecting people down to the relationship level. Okay, in the unseen realms, that is the realms that people don't see, there are beings that sometimes activate people's sexual centers, what turns them on, what turns them off, and directs them in the direction of certain people. And I would even say certain places, like, convincing certain people, giving them the Cupid love bite, the title of Eve Lorgan's book, which discusses this. Okay, that love bite to go move somewhere like where I'm from, Portland, Oregon, #Portland. Maybe another video we'll talk about why has there been such a focus on Portland in the mainstream for people to move to Portland. Is it organic? So, through these wars and the negativity and the technology surpassing our humanity and a lot of different things that we could talk about and the poisons in the food, people's frequency is lowered. There's also a lot of people, New Agers, a lot of white women that look beautiful on the outside and they talk about raising their frequency, but they don't talk about the victims of war. Okay. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're not free of these entities. There are people out there that talk about freeing themselves of entities and the archons, while they themselves are not free themselves because they harbor hate for other people. Okay, there's a lot of people out there that talk about also how we need to stand against evil to serve God. I agree with that. But if they're going to sit there and blame all Muslims or predict that there's going to be a bunch of genuine attacks from Muslims and, that they're all part of some conspiracy against the West, or if they're going to say that the people that had to take the vaccine should die, then they're part of that 99% of humanity that's evil. They're not the 1%. They're fronting. There's a guy that I used to talk to years ago that's doing that fronting now. He ended up with a brain tumor. unfortunately. But did that brain tumor have anything to do with him calling for people to be harmed? You see, so there are people out there right now on the internet that talk about the archons and demons and all this stuff and exorcisms, yet a lot of them haven't yet dealt with their own demons. And Islamists believe that a lot of humans are born with a generous spirit, which makes a lot of sense. So we need to be in control of the steering wheel of our own lives. Otherwise, we'll be on autopilot and be programmed by these entities. This is going to be an introduction video. Okay, so they're going to be shorter videos, but I want to get people, understanding these concepts. If you type in Sufism and jinn, you'll come up with the Sufi Realities YouTube channel. I've learned more from this guy than any other Muslim. So I'll pick a page at random, and sometimes there'll be a bit of wisdom here. But we're talking again about the unseen realms, and from the Sufi Muslim's perspective, he often calls it Shaitan's whispers. How can we control our fear? Okay, page 173. Let me read this now. This is our greatest danger. What's happening now is Shaitan is ruling by fear, and we talked in the website, and everything is tagged. He's discussing his website. Fear is how Shaitan is operating now in the last days, because fear is the opposite of faith. Okay, so this hit me earlier. I'm going to read a little bit more here in a minute. There's a lot of ways in which people in our culture that have a lot going for them, you would think that they would be grateful to God for it. But there are ways in which the powers that be through the media manipulate people, whether it's scaring them about terrorist boogeymen or some other way, frightening them to control them. It's about the fear of death, the fear of death. And so instead of being afraid of God to serve God, it's about, being afraid of death and being afraid of the system, which is ultimately be afraid of the devil or Satan, which is in their world to be afraid of Shaitan. And so through Shaitan's whisperings, i.e. implanted thoughts into the brain, okay, that people don't know, are your thoughts your own? An article, a blog I wrote years ago. People have thoughts that are not their own, that are coming from these unseen realms, these demons, these jinn that are working for Shaitan, the devil. The demiurge being the Gnostic term for Shaitan, for those of you that are not hip to that. Again, before I even picked up this book and looked at this guy's YouTube channel, I was discussing this already. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos, literally sharing information that I came to understand literally is in my DNA. That my soul somehow is activating this combination in DNA and coming up with this understanding with kind of a unique background. Well, my childhood wasn't easy. Could have been better. I'm grateful, I guess, that things weren't worse. And I was at the right time, at the right place to learn certain things. And it's through the challenges and the setbacks, etc., that we can find the way home. Right, which is something that I wrote about over 10 years ago. So some people live hard lives that are on the spiritual path. So people now are looking into the paranormal for a number of reasons. There is an increase in it because of where we are in the solar cycle. I want to keep this very introductory. They're also looking into it because of what's happening astrologically. Okay, so we're in a Saturn and Pisces type of astrological period that's going to last for the next couple of years that we entered into in 2023. Not that I am an astrologer, but my intuition will lead me to certain blogs that will summarize it for me. We are affected by the stars. I think that we do need to understand this. And this is something that some of our ancestors looked at, okay, long time ago. But it's alive in us today, right? We are affected by this. But a lot of people that talk about astrology and whatnot, they don't necessarily talk about how during certain times when planets are in certain positions, it seems that certain humans are coming under possession or going to war. A lot of astrologers talk about, the light and fluffy law of attraction, your next lover, things of this nature. I would say these things have to do with service to self, things of that nature. Picking a random page is something that I've been doing more of with books, although I've been doing it for years, okay, but I don't do tarot. Fear is the opposite of faith, and faith is a light and a guidance that comes into the heart. Okay, this author also writes about how Shaitan, or the evil of this world, you could also say the demons of the jinn, through things in this world and our environment that they're ultimately controlling, they try to blow out our light through the things that they do to us and around us. So having faith in God, despite the things that are happening around us and the wars, is very important. He also talks about meditation. He's got 6 or 7 books on Amazon. I'm going to get his book about the sun prophecy of the sun rising in the west, because I do think there could be a pole shift, more so changes in the sun that affects our reality. And this is in their belief system as well. Okay, I'm not forcing this down anybody's throat, but after years of discussing Christianity and Gnosticism, yeah, I'm going to bring a little bit of this into the picture, because there is a lot of understanding in their religion on the unseen realms regarding the jinn. I don't think you have to necessarily agree with everything else, but you need to know the spiritual side, because you're not going to hear it from Alex Jones and some of the leading voices out there. And I'm here to tell you, as I speculated in videos years ago, right, that some of the leading forces in the media right now on planet Earth are working for these demonic forces. They're servants of Shaitan. Let me remind you something I've said for years in this introduction video, just simple things that I've come to know through this life experience, which is my greatest teacher as I try to climb the ladder back home, which I do not refer to as Valhalla, but the true heaven and true home. Okay. Evil in this reality doesn't often step against evil, although people will stand before the Creator in the hereafter. They will pay. There will be justice for the murder of the children of God. But in this reality where Satan rules on a throne, although he is not the ultimate God, in this world, we're here for a reason, folks. You can even call it a prison planet quarantine world. Never call this paradise, like the 80s song says. Heaven is a place on earth. This is not heaven. Never call this heaven. This is a place of savagery, of violence, of bloodshed, of lust, of rape, of death, of decay. And perhaps the earth is dying, although I'm not convinced necessarily that it's dying. There's a lot of that going around. But we as a civilization, we are at crisis point. We are at a crisis. Yes, the martial arts are important, but it's about a spiritual thing. It's about activating, for me, the God-given ability to protect ourselves from danger. Okay, you know what I'm doing here? Some of the stuff I've mastered my own. I didn't learn this from any dojo, from any schools. There's certain things and techniques, combination of techniques that I've learned to just deliver on my own without being trained by any actual professor or teacher, professional school, or whatnot. Learning how to move in a certain particular way, combining circular motion and heart strikes. For me, it's about combining that internal energy and, of course, the strikes, the hard energy, the hard and soft, by having a spiritual center, never going out looking for fights. And so, I'm not Mr. Badass, but I don't pack heat for reasons I'm not going to get into. I ultimately have a faith in God. So either, you understand, so I train, but I don't walk around in fear, like legitimately right now, because my soul is committed 111% to this mission to serve God and to expose these demonic elements. And so, like, if you are serving God to a certain degree, and I think this is with their belief system, God will protect you. Okay, so on one hand, God will protect you if you're serving God. But on the other hand, this reality, because we are in a dark place, sometimes those that serve God do get taken out. Okay, we're not going to talk long about this, but the victims of war in Afghanistan, there's over 1 million, I think. You might have believed that they weren't serving God. Have some compassion. So let's look at the truth. So to these Muslim clerics out there that say if you pray the right way or do this or do that, God will protect you. Okay, then do they mean that in the hereafter? Because in this life, we could see plenty of people that were devout Muslims that were taken out just like that at weddings and funerals. How do you explain that? Was that God that took them out? Why? Or was that Shaitan? I'll just say this and move on. in our society, even though there is a discussion about the jinn in these religions that that are a part of the lives of many migrants into this society, a lot of people are not really tapped into the supernatural, even if it's in their books. A lot of people think that you just don't really look at that and just pray and just worship. But for some of us, on a soul level, we have a deeper level of knowledge that we are actually here to share. And I would even say and interject, remember. And we're happening to live in times in which world events are happening that trigger us. That trigger us, that cause us to remember another time, perhaps in a galaxy far, far away where we went through this before. Some people call it Atlantis, something else. But yes, we are living like in a repeat cycle where we're living at the end of an age in which technology has surpassed our humanoid reality, our humanity, and we are witnessing potentially our Tower of Babel collapsing as right now our planet's magnetic field goes through collapses. We see changes in the Earth's core. We see changes in the sun. And what humanity does not understand is how when the sun is more active, there are more wars. Okay, so on one level, they don't understand that correlation, that scientific data that can be proven factually. But on a spiritual level, they don't understand that what's happening when the sun is more active, even though it's spiritual and we're connected to it and God created the sun and the moon, there are also these other forces that come about when the sun is more active that seem to come alive in this electromagnetic energy. And I would refer to those as these jinn forces that parasite on humanity, that in some cases possess massive amounts of humanity. And as I've said in other videos, whole videos, which I'm just summarizing here, use the power grid that we have right now as a conduit. So as they set up these cell phone towers, this 5G, which is at a level that they haven't properly tested as far as human health and how we're affected, but they're just rolling it out worldwide in China. And as US and China have a 5G, like high-tech arms race, and Donald Trump says, well, we have to get the lead on 5G, or China is going to get the lead on 5G. That's the excuse that he's providing. Trump is tied in closer to China than what his followers understand. And the communist Chinese rent office space at Trump Tower. It's like something a devil's advocate with Al Pacino. Seriously, we're like possessed people on various levels, from Biden touching the kids. That's right. If you don't know about Biden touching the kids, you should know about Biden touching the kids. And that's just not appropriate. And it's not appropriate for anybody to say it. That's okay for politicians to do that. Okay, it's one thing for somebody to be loving and to, hey, you're like my grandkids, let me give you a hug. And then it's what Joe Biden did. And then you got the statements from Trump, grab a woman by her you-know-what, her coochie, ban the Muslims from the country, get them out, acting like some sort of like scene from Pink Floyd's The Wall, get them up against the wall, against the wall. There's another one. He doesn't look right. Get him up against the wall, against if you haven't seen the 1970s, late 1970s, early 80s Pink Floyd movie, The Wall, featuring Roger Waters, get it, watch it, rent it, however we do those things in 2024. I don't think it's on Netflix. Also, maybe find the book, Which One's Pink? And if you want to know a little bit how I feel, read that section about how the lyrics depicts Roger Waters' feelings in one of those songs, I forget which, but a sense of separation from the audience, as they put up like a big cage, like back in the old days, they had concerts, they literally had a cage between themselves and the audience. So the audience get so crazy and drunk, they would throw literally bottles at the rock stars. Crazy ass shit. Cocaine, man. 70s and 80s. What can I do? I wasn't back there then. I read some stories, talked to some people, man, and if I could turn back time, if I can go in a time machine, that would be one place in history that I would go. Downtown Portland, Oregon, 1977, 1978, 1979, fast forward 1985, 86. I was a little kid during those days, but to be an adult, I'm going to keep talking because I've still got, things to say. Since the massive sunspot of 1947 and the Roswell event, and this whole thing with Japan being nuked, right? Generally, we've seen an explosion in this thing called UFO sightings, again, which the Sufi on his channel calls the jinn, right? So we may be talking about the same thing here. And so as technology has been increasing, as there's been more bombings also, thanks to the military industrial complex, which I think is a product of Shaitan or Satan, we've seen literally a rise in the supernatural, in poltergeist activities, right? So it's a combination of factors why we're dealing with these things in our currently earthly environment. The wars, the current reality, the type of reality being created, which creates hopelessness and desperation in the minds of the people, leading them to drugs, alcohol, and harming others, and human trafficking and prostitution. I mean, there's a reason why some people end up, including some runaways, in these hellish environments, even if their parents abused them. It's the sign of the times. It's the state of decay that America is in. There's also the reality of the slaughter of the Native Americans and the building of properties on sacred lands and burial lands. So there's going to be a certain amount of poltergeist activity. And again, when the solar cycle is more active, certain areas on the planet that have a certain amount of magnetism, these are also areas in which there are more earthquakes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Areas in which there's a certain amount of magnetism, there's more earthquakes, there are more things like that, that in some individuals can induce what is called psychic phenomena or visions or altered perceptions. It is about magnetism. There's also been an article that I've read or seen out there, I'll come into it, read it later, how it discusses magnetic fields being used to hypnotize people. So it's really interesting stuff. So a lot of people think that the voices to skull thing is purely government, okay? And even if that technology does exist, and I don't doubt that it exists, they really overlook the unseen forces, where they choose to call them alien, jinn, archons, or demons. And in East India, it's asuras. So I've come to understand and believe, as far as the demons are concerned, because you need to see things from their psychology. I've discussed this for years. What is their psychology? How do they see us? As they are jealous of us because we have complete human souls and they do not. We're able to experience things in the flesh and they cannot, which is why they attempt to possess people and get them to do drugs and alcohol and things of the like, and to have sex with certain people, okay? Because they're parasiting on humanity. So we have earthbound spirits from not only the past, as far as my commentary in other videos, I've discussed the city in which I'm from, the city in which I was born, and how it has a past of Shanghai and kidnapping, and how that alcoholism of the period there of the 18th century, Dante's Inferno they created when they founded the town and cut down the trees and brought in female prostitutes and then kidnapped the men, shanghaied the men, and the men ended up never to be seen before, basically. And they built the city. Loggers, sailors, carpenters, things of that nature. Sad shit. So that trauma lingers in the air. More trauma, more pain, more entities, regardless of location. So one of the things that I've been saying, this is not plagiarized material, right? One of the things that I've been saying that I believe is accurate, that when the sun is more active, the powers that be that are really being possessed by these jinn forces, they create trauma on the earth to feed and vampire on that energy through the tears, the crying, the suffering. They're literally vampiring. They're literally vampiring on the pain and suffering of those people in Gaza right now and the people watching around. There are probably microscopic energy vampires that are feeding on people's trauma that are sitting on Twitter. It's good to be aware of what's going on. It's also important to understand that we're spiritual beings, and when the sun becomes more active, as the sun becomes more active, our spirit bodies are brighter. And so to those demons, those jinn, those archons. Because again, I'm speaking to those of you that are Muslims, Christians, Jews, and New Agers. And even those that are atheists, I'm trying to wake you up too. Damn straight. I'm trying to wake all of you up. You don't have to believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. And in fact, I came across a tweet that said, actually, the Bible doesn't say that necessarily. Jesus didn't necessarily say that in quote. That became a part of the religion. Okay. But ultimately, you got to be spiritual at a spiritual level to even perceive the evil taking place on this planet. There's a lot of people out there that are devout followers of religions, that go to mosque, that pray 5 times a day, that are pastors at churches, that are rabbis. They talk about Satan, Shaitan, the evil of this world all day long. Some Gnostics talk about demiurge, and then they can like completely miss the elephant in the room. Well, they were talking about millions of innocent people dead in the Middle East that people in this culture aren't discussing, which I consider to be satanic and a violation of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. So here we have a society where you have a lot of people that are killing. Thou shalt not murder. We need to bring back that commandment and bring it back in style. Because as long as you have a society that thinks it's okay to murder and support people that murder and support people that support people that murder and support people that support people that support people that murder, you see it's a chain. And you want to break that chain. It's like I'm about to start singing some Fleetwood Mac song about breaking the chain. But we need to break that chain. You want to create as much separation as possible for your soul to evolve beyond this world, which is where we will conclude this video. Subscribe, like it, share, and I'll be back with more. They want your soul. If you haven't heard that song yet, Google it on YouTube. They want your soul. So you need to engage in a spiritual practice where you can shield yourself to where you can keep out Shaitan's whispers, the voices in the skull. You need to empower yourself and realize that as a human being, you have power. You overcome your targeting. Stop calling yourself a targeted individual if you're in that arena, if you think you're being gang stalked. I've looked into this gang stalking thing and I've made entire podcasts about it. And I've gotten some attitude and flack from it, which I don't really appreciate. But I'll go ahead and gang stalk tag this video. So maybe some of you will actually get this perspective and maybe learn something, right? They want you thinking it's your friggin' neighbors. There's no way in hell the government has all these random people in your neighborhood. No fucking way in hell spying on you. What there is some sort of way in which these entities are able to access our brains. Watch Dark City if you haven't seen already. Access our memories, access our thoughts, and influence us to a certain degree, depending on how weak our field is. The more immoral you are. If you haven't listened yet to Manly B. Hall's lecture on magnetic fields around the human body and the relation between ethics and morality, the more moral you are, the better person you are, the stronger the field around your body, the healthier you are, the more you can protect yourself on your thoughts from being infiltrated and I would say even read. You see, because listen, AI is being controlled by an entity. We're closing in here on 30 minutes, and then we'll be back with more. AI is being manipulated by an entity. A lot of people don't know this, but this guy knows this. And a lot of these smartphones and technologies that people have come to know and love and trust, a lot of these glitches that are taking place, it's coming from these unseen realms that are toying with people. Because where technology really is, the real growth and level that technology is at is far more expansive and developed than what is at the, consumer grade level. Okay. So, they want to manipulate people through fear of the sun. I do agree with this individual as well that what is coming from the sun is a reset. While people are concerned about the World Economic Forum Great Reset, the entities of the jinn world may be very concerned about what's coming from the sun because they're very dependent on technology and the silicone chip and the microchip. And here we are. We have Elon Musk and others promoting and pushing the microchip. And if they are able to get the microchip, or some call it the micro the beast, into some people think that it's going to enslave them into this reality and or their soul. So, yeah, even though there isn't necessarily an antichrist that we can point to, we are living in the day and age of the Antichrist consciousness, the Antichrist media, the Antichrist attitudes, the Antichrist belief systems. So because of that, and because the Antichrist energy is in complete control of the algorithms and what you see on TV, and even the energy is coming through your screen, that is why there are so many entities on Earth right now that are possessing so many humans. I'm going to pause now. I have so much more to say. there's some basic meditations that you should know about: how to protect yourselves, how to ground yourselves, how to put up a shield, how to visualize a mirror around your body, how to visualize a gold sun coming into your body that is bringing energy back into your body, that will add to your soul's growth, your voltage, as you visualize your voltage as if you are a battery, because we are batteries, whether you know that or not. And so you want to take back your power and visualize that, because we are constantly being vampired on in this world and in this dimension by being online and having our images online and our voice online and our videos online and our text messages online. In many ways, we can become courted to these different people and to these different servers. So I got a number of books on psychic self-defense. They're very valuable. It's really important to understand the different perspectives on this topic and the different entities that are believed to be out there, from the larger ones to the smaller ones, to that which may be described as alien or jinn, to that which may be described as poltergeists or earthbound spirits, or former human spirits that are still on the earth in a non-physical body. They have not yet been moved on. But there is not yet a book on protecting yourself in the day and age of the internet. And so that'll be, again, a future topic. Help this channel grow, right? You help me, you leave comments, you leave supportive comments, you help the channel grow, you share the videos, I'll help you and share with you the vast amount of ideas and information that I have literally boiling within me as this solar cycle begins to kick off.